Prince Harry wants his Freedom Flight video wiped from the internet, telling Lady Colin Campbell that nobody should ever watch it again. People are expected to pretend he never made those ridiculous claims in the first place. To annoy him, the footage is played once more. On the 14th of March, the couple was recorded taking their so-called Freedom Flight. They were leaving Canada and heading to Los Angeles, claiming their grandmother placed them there with a ball in their mouths. She described being busy with the situation, expressing gratitude to a mysterious, supportive friend they'd never actually met. A critic online noted that Prince Harry wanted the clip deleted because he was reportedly trying to act like a working royal again. That was not going to happen, as critics shared it widely while observers watched the drama unfold. Harry seemed to be trying to rewrite history, believing that if he claimed to be a working royal, everyone would believe him. But that tactic would not work, because the issue went far beyond that flight video to everything written in his memoir. It looked like a desperate mission, raising the question of why that specific flight video upset the prince so deeply. Lady Colin Campbell noted it was a bold claim that he had been born into a virtual prison. He was raised in captivity until his wife supposedly guided him toward enlightenment and escape. He claimed to escape a life he despised, leaving behind his father and brother, whom he described as still being hopelessly trapped inside that royal system. Yet now, he seemingly wanted to use that very royal background to push a completely different narrative. This new claim, which critics called a falsehood, was his attempt to convince the public that he remained a working royal. A working royal is someone who serves the institution of the monarchy in the country, rather than using their position for personal financial enrichment. They work to benefit the state, whereas Harry did not fit this definition because he expected direct financial payments into his private bank accounts. One cannot claim to be selfless while simultaneously demanding all the personal benefits and rewards of that supposed selflessness. That was pure selfishness, and he likely hoped that by confusing the public, he could claim to be doing good. He wanted to convince the public that he was fulfilling his birthright and making a profit, suggesting it was acceptable because he also did charity work. However, that was not the true essence of royalty, and many believe the modern term of working royal should be discarded entirely. The distinction should be simple. Individuals either work within the official royal fold, or they operate outside of it, solely for their own private benefit. Calling himself a working royal was simply untruthful, as he was clearly working for his own interests during that busy week of media coverage. There was controversial, in-depth reporting published in People magazine, which many observers viewed as quite disgraceful. The cover story was allegedly timed by the couple's PR team to overshadow King Charles's historic state visit. While it succeeded in stealing the spotlight, critics argued that the stunt ultimately damaged the reputation of the magazine itself. Numerous American shoppers reported seeing piles of unsold copies of the publication sitting on grocery store shelves across the country. Anecdotal evidence suggested sales had plummeted simply because the controversial couple was featured on the cover. The article once again highlighted what many perceived as deep delusion from the pair. At the same time, sources within the palace confirmed that Prince William would not tolerate any kind of royal return. Their stubborn stance set them on a direct collision course with Prince William, King Charles, and royal officials. They were also in direct violation of the strict regulations set by the Lord Chamberlain's office. That conflict had been brewing long before the historic departure from the royal family was first revealed. Harry believed that by making bold public claims, he could convince people that his point of view was completely valid. Any initial public sympathy they enjoyed had largely evaporated due to their own controversial actions over the years. Observers noted the absurdity of his claims, especially when he insisted he was still a working royal. While he remained a biological member of the family, his status as a functional working royal had officially ended. Even if stripped of his official titles, he would always remain a member of the family in the exact same way that any ordinary person belongs to their birth family. However, His televised interview suggested he was trying to imply something far more significant. Instead, he was attempting to confuse the public and establish some kind of stable ground for himself. But trying to build solid ground on a foundation of mud was a logical impossibility. Meanwhile, the British press continued what seemed like a targeted campaign against Prince William and Princess Catherine. They chose to use a 15th anniversary wedding photograph to fuel the backlash, raising serious questions about whether the press had crossed a line with their intense scrutiny. Commentators pointed out that the princess was in a no-win situation, facing criticism whether she edited a photo or not. When she stopped editing, the media complained that professional portraits were too polished, showing the press simply could not be pleased. The sheer volume of complaints seemed absurd, as Claudia Connell noted in her piece. At first glance, the photo resembled a casual holiday snap, and while the Wallaces clearly seemed like a happy family, it was far from a spontaneous, intimate moment. Instead, Matt Porteous, a professional photographer and family favorite, captured the highly polished scene, presenting what appeared to be a meticulously planned and highly stylized photo shoot. Some might wonder why this mattered, since the image was undeniably charming. Yet the discomfort stemmed from how showbiz it felt, feeding into social media's pursuit of artificial perfection. To be clear, nobody wanted to see the royal couple in a messy house with muddy dogs and arguing siblings. They simply wanted more honesty, professional portraits that actually embraced being professional portraits. Instead, these were studio portraits disguised as relaxed, informal holiday moments. Historically, Kate, a passionate amateur photographer, took most of the portraits released for special family occasions. But after the March 2024 editing debacle, where she admitted to altering a photo taken by Prince William, observers wondered if she decided it was simply safer to let professionals handle the camera. If so, it seemed a pity, as the public was subsequently flooded with highly stylized Hollywood-style photos of the family. The promotional videos were often accompanied by dramatic spiritual voiceovers, raising concerns that this entire aesthetic was beginning to heavily resemble Meghan Markle's style. Such branding was expected from a Californian lifestyle blogger who loved talking about living authentically, speaking her truth, and thriving, not just surviving. Indeed, Harry and Meghan had a solid 8-year history of producing precisely these types of barefoot on the beach, heart in the sand photographs. The public had frequently mocked them for it, making it risky if Kate and William continued down the same path. At times, it felt like they were just one step away from writing inspirational quotes on bananas. When asked for her thoughts on this sharp criticism, Lady Colin Campbell countered that the columnist missed a crucial historical point, noting that royals had always relied heavily on professional photographers. She pointed to legendary figures like Cecil Beaton and Anthony Armstrong Jones, reminding viewers that King George VI himself had once requested that Beaton's portraits of Queen Elizabeth, who later became the Queen Mother, be highly stylized and evocative of a classic Winterhalter painting. This deliberate artistic choice ultimately defined the public image for Queen Elizabeth throughout her entire royal life. Thus, the professional element was always present. This was especially true for Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, whose polished public image remained a historical fact. In contrast, Catherine was the one acting as the amateur photographer, a role Lady Colin hoped she would maintain. She agreed the professional portrait was beautifully posed, but felt that without the genuine amateur touch, it lost some of its appeal. Had Catherine taken the picture herself, it likely would have held greater appeal. Instead, a hired professional curated a rustic, down-to-earth aesthetic, arranging the family against a backdrop of hay to create a forced sense of casual simplicity. In her view, the result mirrored the style of Meghan and Harry, though she acknowledged such an approach had its place. Nonetheless, she believed it would have resonated far more had Catherine set up the camera herself. Taking the photo without professional polish would work, but if a professional is used, the image must retain a distinct royal dignity. She insisted that one simply could not mix the two styles successfully. At that point, the host interjected to present historical photographs that challenged Lady Colin's perspective. The host displayed archival images taken over the decades, showing the Queen Mother posing warmly with her daughters, noting that those specific iconic photos were actually captured by Lord Snowden. While Lady Colin agreed, the host argued those portraits merely reflected their era, pointing out that the modern world had moved on. In an age dominated by curated social media aesthetics, this approach was seen as part of William and Kate's subtle modernization effort. The host also disputed any comparisons to Meghan, pointing out that Meghan's photographs often had a distinctly unusual, even bizarre quality to them. Her pictures frequently hid her children's faces, using strategic angles or digital graphics to conceal them. In contrast, the host viewed Catherine's style as a contemporary update of the Queen Mother's candid of-the-moment portraits with her daughters. Meghan's hidden portraits were described as bizarre and deeply unsettling, whereas Catherine's family photos felt entirely wholesome and devoid of that strange atmosphere. The host then directed the audience's attention back to the specific portrait of William, Catherine, and their 3 children. In a further disagreement with the columnist, the host pointed out that the image was far from artificially flawless, noting George looked away. Though the young prince seemed slightly uneasy, the family still shared the photo because it captured an authentic moment in time. Regarding the use of modern technology, the host argued that if drones had been widely available in the 1930s, the Queen Mother likely would have used them too. Lady Colin readily agreed with that sentiment, clarifying that she held no real objections to the aesthetic of the photograph itself. Her point of disagreement was solely that she would have preferred Catherine to set up and take the photograph herself, rather than outsourcing the task to a professional. She noted there were times for different styles before reacting to an image of Meghan showing her back to the camera. She characterized it as an overtly suggestive image, unhesitatingly labeling it as deeply unsettling once more. She argued Meghan intentionally wore a sheer dress to mirror the iconic photo of Diana taken by Arthur Edwards. The host countered that Diana never officially released Arthur Edwards' photo and was actually quite embarrassed by it. Furthermore, they noted that Diana never claimed she was roasting a chicken with Charles during his marriage proposal. If you and I consult the Urban Dictionary, we will quickly see the bizarre link between revealing attire and roasting a chicken. The commentators left it there, turning instead to a highly intriguing detail in the famous Arthur Edwards photograph of Lady Colin Campbell. In that shot, only Diana's legs were visible, whereas Meghan seemingly went out of her way to flaunt her entire silhouette in the family portrait. The display struck onlookers as utterly bizarre. The presenter expressed deep skepticism toward the Daily Mail, explaining that these critical articles seemed deeply unfair. In his view, it no longer mattered what Prince William and Catherine did. The press would always find a way to criticize them. He firmly believed this negative narrative was being driven directly by Tobin Andre and Buckingham Palace, though it was a conspiracy they had already thoroughly explored. Instead of dwelling on old arguments, the host shifted focus to the explosive Princess Diana recordings, which had ignited massive global controversy throughout the week. While Lady Colin Campbell had authored the first book on Diana, Andrew Morton worked directly with the princess, granting him exclusive access to these recordings. This led many onlookers to wonder if the public had already heard these tapes before. Surprisingly, much of the audio remained entirely unreleased. Let us look at the details of the story together before examining her reaction. Intimate audio recordings documenting the collapse of Princess Diana's marriage were set to be broadcast for the very first time in an upcoming 3-part television series. The documentary Diana: The Unheard Truth drew from 5 hours of secret tapes recorded in 1991, capturing her raw feelings about her former husband, King Charles. She also spoke candidly about Queen Camilla, Prince William, Prince Harry, Sarah Ferguson, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. These recordings were quietly captured by her close friend, Dr. James Coulter, smuggled directly out of Kensington Palace, and delivered straight to biographer Andrew Morton. The biographer used these tapes as the foundation for his groundbreaking book, Diana: Her True Story. In the 3 decades following her tragic passing, less than 1 hour of these recordings has ever been made public. The documentary is produced by Love Money TV, which partnered with Morton and Coolers to gain exclusive access to the archive. The production company promised the tapes would reshape her legacy, presenting a remarkably resilient and deeply perceptive young woman. She found herself under the intense glare of the global spotlight, navigating those overwhelming trials with profound grace, self-awareness, and immense resolve. Audiences would soon experience her legendary, infectious humor and discover just how remarkably accurate her predictions about the future actually were. Most poignantly, the tapes revealed her lost dreams for an alternate future, a chapter where Charles rode off with Camilla, leaving Diana completely free to forge her own independent path. Production was actively underway, with the premiere scheduled for August 31st, 2027. Many viewed the timing as incredibly tasteless, since it marked the exact 30th anniversary of her death, suggesting the producers were simply chasing a massive payday. The producers released a statement noting that whenever Diana spoke during her life, the entire world stopped to listen. They claimed these newly uncovered recordings offered a rare opportunity to hear her side again, urging the public to remember her legacy of courage and love. Her raw, unfiltered words painted a complete portrait of a woman overcoming intense pressure, redefining her purpose, and moving forward with absolute conviction. The series ultimately invites you and me to understand Diana, not just by her tragic circumstances, but by the powerful way she chose to respond.